filled ocean.
Ya'ate anoscho, ahehe, chani ya'anoscho, and this is for my mom, Kathy. I love you. Thank you all for being here this evening. We would like to take this time to acknowledge our traditional owners and ancestors of the tribal lands Ogapoge, Owinge, also known as Santa Fe. We reside here. Thank you for having us and blessing us. We also want to take this time to acknowledge Women's History Month. Every day, we need to honor women. So, we have a very special guest tonight in honor of Women's History Month, who happens to be from one of the Pueblo tribes, Mary Jane Bird, also known as Blue Horizon, her Tiwa name, hailing from the Pueblo village of Oke Owinge. She is the visionary founder, director, and artist behind Blue Horizon Dance and Storytelling. This unique platform beautifully blends ballet and modern dance with American Indian dance, storytelling, and even some Indian Sign Language. So everybody, please welcome our beautiful guest, Mary Jane, this evening. Thank you, Mary Jane, for being with us this evening. So I wanted to start the evening off by telling you that we have been looking forward to this evening for a very long time. So I'm going to go ahead and start by asking you to tell us a little bit about your bio and some of who you are. As we get to know you, we'll ask you some more questions. Thank you.
Oh, okay. All right. I was looking for myself on the screen, but I'm up there in the corner. Okay. Yeah. My name is Mary Jane Blue Spruce Bird Cote. At 4 days of age, according to the Tewa village of Oke-Owinge, I was given my native name, which is Kwanatsawen, which means Blue Horizon. And that is what I have always performed by, Blue Horizon. I was born and raised at the Santa Fe Indian School back in the 1940s, 50s. So I guess I'm old. And I do have some wisdom, although my wisdom teeth are gone. But anyway, so as I said, I was born and raised at the Santa Fe Indian School. My parents were George and Juanita Blue Spruce, and were very adamant about education. Because as my father would always say, daughter, people, the first thing they see in you is brown. So whatever comes out of your mouth should be intelligent. So that is why my mother and father sent us, my brothers, I have two older brothers, sent us to parochial school, to Catholic school, so that we would be able to speak intelligently. Now, this caused a problem within the Indian community because they decided that we were trying to be white. And of course, we didn't fit in the white community because we were considered stupid. My first day at parochial school, which was Loretto Academy, which is no longer there, but it is now the Inn at Loretto in Santa Fe. My first day of school, I entered. The nuns looked at me and said, "Oh, you're an Indian. Well, you must be stupid. So go to the back of the room." So I went to the back of the room. I felt embarrassed. I didn't cry, but I felt embarrassed. Now, imagine this is a 6-year-old who my father had sent to school on a bus. By 6 years old, I was traveling back and forth to school on a city bus. My father had written home, and that's the bus I was to take, and school, that was the bus I was to take. So when I went home, I told my mother and father what had happened to me. Now, in this day and age, parents would be really upset and would have gone to the school and complained and done whatever was necessary to make their child welcome. My father simply told me, daughter, go back and prove them wrong. So I did. Sat in the back of the room. Third grade, we were given Stanford achievement tests back then. I made the highest score in the entire school, which was from first grade to 12th grade. I then began to sit in the front of the room. So they now said, okay, I guess you got some smarts. So I continued in that manner. So that was my first experience out in the world. But now back at the Indian school, everyone was saying, oh, you're just trying to be white. You know, you going to a special school, and here we are going to, you know, the what is it, the public school system. But when you were a product of a parent who was teaching or worked there at the Indian school, you were not allowed to go to the Indian school. So you either went to public school or private school. Most everyone went to public school except for my brothers and I. So we weren't considered being real Indians because we were not doing what all the other Indians were doing. So it was kind of hard, but they didn't realize that we didn't have a television. We didn't have a lot of things. My brothers hunted. We had rabbit, we had pigeons, we had fish, we had deer. And when my uncle slaughtered a cow, we had beef. And when my grandmother slaughtered a pig, we had pork. But we didn't have store-bought food all the time. It was whatever, you know, my folks. And then my family had a garden, so we had vegetables from our garden, and we had tortillas. That was a mainstay. My favorite meal was crackers with water because it was quick enough to fix. And like I said, we didn't have a lot of money, so crackers with water was a good source of food for me. And when I was 6 years old, I went to the movies, where you could go to the movies for 25 cents and get popcorn, candy, and a pop, and go enter the theater, and you could stay all day long. So my father would drop me off on a Saturday, and I'd get to watch all these the series and the cartoons and the news. But the special feature that came on was An American in Paris. And I saw these people who were dancing and had noise on their feet, could stand on their toes, could do the weirdest of things. And I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to be a dancer. I want to stand on my toes. I want to make noise. I want to sing. That's what I want to do. So I stayed until the last movie, and my father picked me up, and I told him what I wanted to do, and he just laughed. And I told my mom, and she just laughed. And I told my brothers, but my second oldest brother, who was 10 years older than me, said, that's great. There are no ballerinas. She should be a ballerina. And my folks said, well, we can't afford to send her to school. You know, we send you to private school. We can't afford to send her to dance classes, and they cost a lot of money. So my brother said, I'll pay for it. I'll get a job. So he got a job, and I got to go to dance classes. And there in dance, they didn't care what color I was. All they cared about is, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you point your toe or not? And it's up to you. You either can point your toe or you can't. And I loved the fact that it was up to me to do what I needed to do. Not anybody else, just me. And they didn't care the color. And that's how I got into dance and eventually became a ballerina. I performed with the Oklahoma Civic Ballet Company, where I also performed with Maria Tallchief, who at that time was the prima ballerina. She was half Osage and half French. And I got to perform with her. Now, I have studied with master dancers master teachers in modern and in ballet. The ballet teachers I had were German, who taught in German, were Russian, who taught in Russian, French, who taught in French. Luckily, ballet is all French. So when they said, "Deux jetés," I knew what they were talking about because it's French and you know the words. So that's kind of my history of being in dance, and with Blue Horizon Dance and Storytelling, which I developed at Arizona State University, I decided that people needed to know about my culture, but I didn't want to stand there and talk to them about my culture. I wanted to show them my culture. So I had dances called rain dance, which talked about why we have long hair, what it means to plant the corn, to plant the seeds, to let them grow, what all that means. And to be an Indian. My one woman show was called I Am Indian. And in that, it discussed everything about what it is like to be an Indian, but through my form of dance, which was a combination of ballet, modern, and American Indian dance and storytelling. So when I would say, look, I would say, see, which is Indian Sign Language for see, look. And when I would say, my heart, my heart, my heart. So I always spoke of having a strong mind and a pure heart. And with both of those entities, you can do whatever you dream of doing, but you have to work for it. And that's the hard part, is working for it. So many young people today just think, oh, this is what I'm going to do. And then they wonder why they can't do it because something has, it just hasn't happened. That's because you have to work at it. It just doesn't come your way. So, yes, I performed all over the U.S. and my I guess my favorite performances was I did 2 performances for the Clintons when he was inaugurated as president. And during that time, the Kennedys came in to watch. And I have never had so many cameras faced at me and clicking back and forth. And all I kept hoping is, I hope I'm facing the right way for this particular step. I hope this, because I had never had that many cameras on me before. So that was exciting. I've danced at the Kennedy Center, and I've danced in New York and done panels in New York. I would belong to what was called the WA Association, which was the Western Arts Alliance. So I did various things for that organization, along with being I had to audition to be on the various what I guess like the Arizona Commission on the Arts, Nevada Commission on the Arts, Virginia Commission on the Arts, New Mexico Commission on the Arts, California Commission on the Arts. All these various Commission on the Arts is how I got a lot of my bookings. And I was booked from 1990, I guess it's when I began in 1998 is when I really began performing on my own. And I was booked every single month for at least 2 weeks to a month all over the US. So my story was told everywhere. And I thought about starting off with one of my stories, which is how I began most of my series. But I thought, no, we'll just do it this way. So I think I've covered, because I have my notes here, I think I've covered what I hoped to have covered. I hope. Yes. So I can talk about what it was like being brown and a dancer on stage, because the first time I did ballet and I was on stage, and at that time we wore pink tights. No matter the costume, you always wore pink tights because they didn't have all the colors they do now. But they said, that won't work. She's coming out orange. And because I was brown, and when you put pink and brown together, I guess it turns out orange. So they were going, wait, that's not going to work. What are we going to do? So they had to figure out what I had to do to look the right color. And then they didn't have the lighting that they do nowadays. So they had to figure out what to do with this brown person on stage and the lighting at that time. Because you have to remember, the lighting at the time was in the 60s, late 60s, early 60s. And so the lighting was not what it was today. And costumes, and they put me in Egyptian makeup because they didn't have my color of brown at that time. So I had Egyptian makeup, which was more or less black makeup rather than brown makeup. And there were problems of what to do with me, with my brown color. I laugh at things that are going on now about people complaining about this and that, and I'm going, you weren't around when I, the brown person, was actually on stage. There just weren't the brown people that there are now. Yeah.
Well, I came upon a book by another dancer back in the day named Molly Spotted Elk from the Penobscot Nation, and she was born around like 1904, about the same year as my grandmother from upstate New York, my French grandmother. And I read her book written by Bunny McBride, and I was actually completely blown away about her story and how she came into all of this. But because it was so long ago in the early 1900s that she jumped into the scene, there was a lot of influence about her tribe, the language, their issues on the Penobscot Fire Island. I think it's called Fire Island. And can you talk to us a little bit about some of your like your grandparents and some of like your early Pueblo, some of your Pueblo years in the lands that you were raised on and some of the stories? Can we just touch on that a little bit, some of that traditional influence?
As I said, my parents were the first generation off. My mother being from Okeo-Winkee and my father being from Laguna. And that's why I always say I speak English very well, because my mother spoke Tewa. And there are five, there's Tiwa, Towa, Tewa, Tiwa. So you have to be clear on if it's Te, it's Tewa. If it's Ti, it's Tiwa. And if it's To, it's Towa. So that can be kind of a mix up there. So I am Tewa. And as I said, my father and mother were the first generation off, but I would have to go and help my grandmother, who was a pottery maker, because she was blind. And so we would go under the porch in Santa Fe, which they still sell their wares under the porch. And a piece of pottery about this big, she would be asking $2 for, which of course nowadays would be, $100 or more. And tourists would come by and try and talk her down, like, no, it's 50 cents, and I would have to speak the English for her because she only spoke Tewa. And I would get so angry, and she would have to keep poking me because I would be yelling at tourists, telling her, do you know what she had to do make this pottery? She had to go out, get the clay. She had to go and mix the clay. She had to do it the string type of thing around. She didn't put it on a potter's wheel. I had to explain all of these things to tourists. And I said, how dare you talk her down to 50 cents from $2, and of course she would poke me because, 50 cents was 50 cents, and so she would sometimes get angry with me. And then I remember the time she lived in a one room house. And everything, she knew this, how many steps to and from wherever, from her bed, from her table to the stove. She cooked on her own. And what she would do is, I remember that back then they had nothing but dirt floors. And so we had to, sprinkle the water, sweep it off to get the dirt kind of hard. And my folks had made enough money to get linoleum flooring. So we put it down on the floor and it kept rolling back and we had to put it down. So my dad said, daughter, go out and get some rocks. So we had rocks all around to hold this linoleum down on the floor, But but it was fascinating to watch my grandmother. And from her, I guess I learned how important it is to keep things in place. Don't move it around, because when you're blind, you can't see, where it is. So you have to put it in the same place all the time so that you know where it is. So as I said, that would happen during the summers. All the grandchildren had to be responsible for taking care of my grandmother, or she would sometimes come and stay with us. And she would try and teach me Tewa, and she would always use my fingers, go, we, boye, yono, ano, si, se, hueve, bueno, den, So I learned how to count, but I wasn't very good at words, because like po could be fish, could be water, or it could even be a leg. It all depended on the way you put it in a sentence. So I had trouble with that. And my father's language, oh my gosh, everything was and it's like, oh, the only thing I learned from my father was show, let's go. Because that was a nice, and he knew the word for donut, which I wish I had recorded, because it's no longer used, because it would describe the roundness of the donut, the hole in the middle, the sugar on the top, and how it was sweet. So the word was about this long, and I never recorded it. However, I did record my mother. I had her speak the English word, then give it to us in Tewa, and then pronounce it phonetically. So now the okay awinka, it, according to my mother, is not spelled correctly. Of course, my mother is long gone, but she spelled it okay, which was okay e with a thing over the e. So you pronounced it okay, not okay, but okay. And awinka was Owegeh, Owinge. So it wasn't Owinge like it is now. So, I mean, people say, okay, Owinge, but that's not the correct pronunciation. The correct pronunciation is okay, Owinge. So and that's due to a linguist coming in and saying, this is how it has to be. And we're going, but it's tonal, not listening to us. So it's a lot of the things that are out there are incorrectly written. But my mother would be happy that instead of San Juan, which was the name given to us by the conquistadores, it is now our own name, even if it's spelled
Yes.
wrong.
Yes,
Yes.
and I'm thinking about your grandmother, because I was very close with my grandmother, and I still am. And her DNA runs through my blood, so I'm very grateful. But she never learned English, and because of her, gratefully, I have a good grasp on the Navajo language. So I was thinking about you saying about the dirt floor, and my grandmother, of course, we were nomadic on Black Mountain, and so the floors were dirt. But I'm thinking, I wonder when you all came and said, hey, we got linoleum flooring. I wonder if your grandmother actually preferred that, or if she preferred to just be one with the earth on the dirt for her floor. That would be a good question that we could think about. But it's like, because some people on the Navajo reservation, when plumbing came in and toilets, our traditionals said, get that out of here. We are not going to be, that belongs over there. And of course it goes back into the earth and has all those other qualities too. But it's just interesting how we assume our traditionals want the westernization of everything, including the English language. Some do not, and some prefer not to have infrastructure in the home, but prefer the old ways. So I was just wondering about that.
All I know, according to our ways, at least as my mother told me, is that you don't, you go with whatever comes. You don't try and make things the way it was. You go and go with the flow.
Hmm.
Because I remember when I had to travel a mile down for the outhouse and I hated it, using the catalogs. Those Sears catalogs were great though. My husband who grew up poor as well, and he's not native, I said, so which part of the catalog did you use? He says, oh, I used all the underwear part. I said, I used all the tool part. So I said, we have things in common, even though we're not the same, nationality. Yeah, rub it, make it, and I asked my mother one time. I said, before there was like catalogs, what did you use? She says, we used the corn cobs, and I'm going, oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, but I remember when the outhouses became these little places alongside the house where they became the indoor toilet, and then I remember when the antennas went on top of the roofs. Because television was in now. So I remember
Right.
all these things taking place, and the dirt roads becoming paved in the reservation. The dirt roads becoming paved.
Right.
And
Right.
the one reason I married my first husband was because he had an indoor bathroom. I don't think I ever told him that, but that was the reason. I thought, wow, he's got to be rich. He's got an indoor bathroom, whereas we were still going to the outhouse.
Better marry him.
Yeah, look, he's got an indoor bathroom. Yeah.
That's
So,
wonderful.
yeah. So,
Well, that's beautiful that you have those memories. They're here. And my best memories are on Black Mountain up a 26-mile dirt road to a place called Oak Ridge on top of Black Mountain, and having a can of sardines with some Tabasco sauce and saltine crackers was just like, can I just not have to share this? Because it's just like, no, you have to share it because, it's one can of sardines and one thing of the saltine crackers. And it's like, and so I just have great memories of that. So anyways, so back to your dance career. Where did you get your inspiration to become? I imagine learning how to be a ballerina, you have to learn technical stretches and moves. Like, how do you stand on your toes? I mean, like that. It's like,
yeah, you have to be
how did
strong.
that work?
Um, Luckily, I've been very strong, and I actually was put on point when I was 8 years old. That's something you do not do. You usually do not put a child on point until they're 12 and have been dancing at least anywhere like 8 years or more, because you need to develop strength. Now, ballet requires the total body. I mean, when you look at it on stage, it looks so easy and whatever, but it's the whole body is working, and you don't know it, and unless you were to go backstage and watch us going because everything is working. There is not a single muscle that is not working. Now that also goes for most dance. You don't just go out there and just flop around, which I see a lot of people doing now, a lot of dancers doing now. And I'm going, you're not going to make it to my age. You're not going to make it to my age because you have no control. And that's why when I see young people who want to be dancers, I say you have to be technically trained. Don't just go out there and say, I'm a dancer. Get the technical training that you need, because with that technical training, you can do any kind of dance. Although Martha Graham technique was hard for me, because ballet, you have to have a back like this. Martha Graham, you had to be able to contract and release, contract and release. And I had the hardest time contracting because my back was so rigid from being in ballet, where you have to keep it strong and tight and not do any of the bending that Martha Graham technique involved. And I can remember going, that's as far as it goes. It doesn't go anymore. And then other people could really get it. But yeah, so technique is so important, and you need to be really strong. And when you go on point, you have to be able to stand flat and be able to go up on point all the way up. And like right now,
Forgive my
yeah,
ignorance. What does point mean?
point means most people call it point shoes or toe shoes. Okay, we call them point shoes. The old term was toe shoes because you were standing on your toes, therefore they were toe shoes. Yeah, but they are called point shoes. Nowadays they're called point. And you stand on, and when you first begin point, you are blistered like crazy. They have little bunny pads, what they call bunny pads, which you put on your toes to protect your toes. And then you get rid of the bunny pads and you tape your toes. And then you get, either you can continue keeping the tape on your toes, throughout, or you just don't do any have any covering on your toes because your toes have become so strong. Now I have danced on point with a broken toe because I was doing leaps one time and I broke my toe, but show must go on. And the one thing about me is I have an overdeveloped arch, which means my arch is really very, very pointed. I have a very, very good point, which is very necessary to do ballet, to have a good point on your foot. And if you have flat feet, it's really hard. And a lot of Indians have flat feet. So that's really hard to get that point. But with me, I could do it. But I had to have a specialized shoe because I had an overdeveloped arch. Now, my dad, when I first started, because toe shoes at that time were so expensive that we had to find a way to make my toe shoes last longer because I could break in a pair of toe shoes or point shoes in just a lesson or two. So he made little leather things for me to stick into my point shoes so that they would last a little longer, so that we didn't have to spend so much money. Then I got introduced to Nina Coppola, who was one of my ballet dancers my ballet teachers for a very, very long time, who sent me to the Russians, who sent me to various places to make sure that I would get the type of training I needed. But she found out that there was a shoe called a barre, which is made in France, which has a still shank, which you can put on if you have an overdeveloped arch, and therefore you don't break in your shoes quite as fast as I do. So I had a special shoe and did point. And there are various exercises that you do in ballet to help you develop the strength that you need in your legs and your feet and in your back and your torso. And one of the things which I hated to do, which was called a rond de jambe en l'air, which means you circle your leg in the air. You're not actually circling your leg, but you are bringing the knee in and out and in and out. And you have to do it en dehors and en dedans, which means you have to do it forward and backwards. Now, in class, we had to do 32 en dehors and 32 en dehors. Now that requires the thigh muscle to be working. Now imagine this is the leg. This is your thigh, and this is the knee, and you're working this. Now, try doing that 64 times. Your leg is burning, your thigh is burning, everything is hurting tremendously, and you still have to stay upright and look beautiful. So in my mind, I'm going, I love it, 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 I love it. That's the only way I made it through that exercise. That to me was the hardest of all exercises to do. And that's kind of the Russian technique. They make you do things over and over and over till it hurts so badly that you don't think you can do it anymore, and then you do it again. That's their method of training, or used to be their method of training. I don't think it is that way anymore, but that's when I had the Russian technique, that's how I was taught. And also when I lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. Oh dear, does that mean I'm getting old?
No, that means that I'm ready for another question. I'm
Okay.
curious about you getting your innate discipline? Is that something you were just born with? Is it something that your parents raised you with? Was it the Catholic school training? How did you end up becoming able to do that? Because like you said, if you want something, you're not just going to get handed to it. You have to work for it. So how did you develop that discipline at such a young age? Is it just, it was a passion for you? Because
I think
obviously it must have been arduous and painful.
I loved it so much that I knew that in order for me to progress, I would have to do certain things. So if it was painful, I did it. And, there was always the correction. My teachers mostly taught with a cane. So if you didn't do it correctly, they would come along and hit you with the cane. And that was inspiration too, to go, oh, I'm doing this right, or I'm going to get hit by a cane. Um, but and then I know that I was known as around the Indian school as the little girl who jumped around a lot. I was always moving. I could never sit still. My dad would have me sit on a chair and be still for 5 minutes. Just be still, daughter. Don't move. Don't do it. Oh my gosh, is that hard to do? Just be still in mind and everything for 5 minutes. And I think that also was helping me with my dance. But I think I loved dance so much and I wanted it so badly that I would do whatever was necessary to make myself, if they wanted 3 turns, by gosh, I was going to be able to do 4. If they wanted my leg this high, my gosh, I was going to get it up there. You know, I made my body do things. And luckily, my first dance teacher told me that I really didn't have a dancer's body. But these are tricks she gave me so that I could have that dancer's body. She knew anatomy. And that is something that a lot of teachers don't know today. They just expect you to do something and not really have an anatomical knowledge. So she knew what my body could do and what it couldn't do. And she would say, now do this, but in order to make it look higher, you can do this with your body. So she was really in tune with my body and what it could do. And I had long legs and long arms. She said, those you put to use. You make people think you are 6 feet tall. Lengthen those arms, lengthen, be tall. And she taught me, all about that. So I became, as a teacher, very anatomically minded, knowing that, okay, can do this or can't do that. How can I help them attain what they need to attain? Because you have to know your a body. If you don't know your body, then you throw yourself around.
That's right. That's right. Gosh, so many questions running through my mind about you being the student and the acquisition of all of this with the technique and the teaching and the discipline and the role models that you aspire to be like. And then they say that a ballerina's life is this X amount of years when the body, you just can't do this for 40 years. But after that part of you is like, okay, I've had enough, and then you go, okay, what am I going to do? Education wise, can you talk to us a little bit about what you decided to do when you needed to do something else to support yourself?
Well, I was of the belief that when I went to an audition, there wasn't a type of dance that I wasn't going to be able to do. If they wanted me to do flamenco, I was going to be able to do flamenco. If they wanted me to do tap, I was going to be able to do tap. Whatever they wanted me to do, I was going to be capable of doing it. So I took every type of class there was. Whenever there was an opportunity to take a new style, I took it. And because I did not want to be turned down for any auditions. And my father was adamant about education. As I said, they promoted education because they wanted us to be able to continue in this new world that now existed and to come back and possibly help those who are still being held back by our race. Now, my oldest brother became the first American Indian dentist in the United States. My other brother became one of 19 full blooded Indian physicians in the United States. And I became the first full blooded ballerina. So, I'm full blooded Indian. There's not a speck of me that isn't. So, so therefore, I had to prove to myself that this brown person could do whatever they asked. But I had my father's words in the back of my mind always: daughter, you need to be educated. You need to be educated. So when I went away to college, I applied to 7 schools that had dance as in their curriculum. So I thought, okay, I can get a dance degree here. Well, the only one that I could afford, and oh, here's another thing. When I first went to Oklahoma College for Women, which is the only place I could afford, I didn't have any money to go to school. My brother, Burl, who was the physician, had me practice because he and my mother took me to Oklahoma College for Women, which was in Chickasha, Oklahoma. And he says, now repeat after me. He called me Fathead. He had nicknames for everybody, as most Indians always have nicknames, right? Well, my nickname was Fathead. And he said, now, Fathead, repeat after me. You're going to the dean's office and you're going to say, I have no money, but I want to go to school. Now, repeat after me. I have no money, but I want to go to school. And I did that. They dropped me off. I didn't have toothpaste, toothbrush, soap, nothing except dance clothes and, the few clothes that I had. I had 1 suitcase. That was it. So Monday morning, and I noticed everybody when they were unpacking in the dorm, they had all this stuff like toothpaste, toothbrush. I went, oh my gosh, I don't have any of that stuff. But anyway, so Monday morning, I went into the dean's office, secretary sitting there, and I said, I'd like to speak to the dean. And she says, do you have an appointment? I said, no, but I really need to speak to the dean. And she says, okay, he's got some time. So he went in there. I sat down and I said, I have no money, but I want to go to school. His face, I can still picture it, was like, you gotta be kidding. And he says, what? I said, I have no money, but I want to go to school. And he says, have you even been accepted here? And I said, oh, yes, I've been accepted. I said, I've been accepted at 7 different schools, but this is the only one I think I can afford. He said, but you have no money. I said, I know, but I can work. I can do whatever. So he digs in his desk and he pulls out this. He says, I have this thing here that's called a war loan. He says, it will pay for your tuition. He says, but you're going to have to pay it back. I said, fine, okay, I'll pay it back, because I'll get a job. I'll pay it back. So I went to the drive-in across the street and became a car hop, and would get money through there, peel potatoes, go to the car hop. And then one of my dance teachers says, I have a job for you. She says, it will pay you $100 a month. Now think, 1962, $100 a month, that was a lot of money. And I said, what do I have to do? She says, you have to wash the towels, fold the towels, and hand them out to all the PE people as they come through. And I said, that's it? She says, yep. And I said, can I study along the way? And she says, oh, sure. So I thought, wow, am I lucky? So that's how I afforded to go to college, was working in the PE department, washing towels in the machine. I didn't have to do them by hand, thank goodness.
Right,
Like
right.
my mother washed all our clothes by hand on a washboard.
That is wonderful. That is wonderful. Well, we have time for one more quick question. So our theme this year is from one of our board members, Nicole, and she's from the Lumbee tribe. And she's also an artist and a very educated woman. And so she says, this is coming from her, ancestrality. They whisper me through. So it's a play with words, and everybody can, as Shakespeare said, comprehend that to whatever they want it to mean to them. So what is ancestrality? They whisper me through mean to you?
Okay, before To that question, I want to make a quick statement that I have both my bachelor's and master's in dance from Arizona State University. I managed to
Yay!
follow my father's dreams. I do have an education.
You have a
Now,
master's.
I have a master's in dance, yes, and well, the bachelor's. Of course, you have to have the bachelor's to get the master's. Yes, yeah. But I looked at that phrase and I kept trying to think about it because I have lived in a white world and had to compete in a white world all my life. That being Indian, it's inside of you. It doesn't necessarily come from my ancestry. I mean, yes, it does, but I'm Indian. And
Yeah.
you can't take that away. You look at me,
Oh,
you see brown. I'm Indian. I'm as Indian as they come. I may not have grown up on a reservation like a lot of people because I had to live through that where they say, "Well, you're not Indian because you didn't live on a reservation." I'm going, "Oh, give me a break." My granddaughter's going through that. My granddaughter is going through that. Well, you're not Indian. But yeah, but she participates in all the ceremonies as I did, as I do.
right.
And but it's in you. It's not something that is taught. I don't think ancestry, I don't think that's something that's taught. You have it, it's inside there. And you can't, it's indescribable. I think as if you were Irish. It's in you, whatever you are, it's inside you, and you do something with it. Said you're given an ability. Find out what it is and spread it out there.
Thank
Do
you.
something.
That is so beautiful. I love that answer. Thank you for sharing. We're going to take a quick commercial break and then we're going to come back and we're going to invite all your fans and your family members to come in for a quick hello. And we're going to try to honor as many speakers as there is so they can at least say hi to you. Give it up, Elena.
Thanks for that, Tasha, and thank you, Mary Jane, for this extraordinary walk that you've done. Period! Exclamation mark. So really honored to be taking all of this wonderful wisdom and what you have done, continue to do, and then passing on to future generations. So thank you so much with this and that. If this is your first time at the Indigenous Ways Circle, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Because we've got a lot of people in, I'm going to do what we usually do, which is a quick commercial break of what's going on. Then as Tash was saying, we're going to invite all of you to come in if you've got questions. And for all those people out in social media land, if you want to type something or a comment for Mary Jane Bird, please do. Now is the time. And we'll bring everyone in very soon. So what's happening next month? The Wisdom Circle happens every month, same time, same channel. So the third Wednesday of each month. So next month on the 17th of April, we have the beautiful Dakota Beavers. He may look familiar as he is an actor and got this wonderful role if you are a Hulu subscriber in what is called Prey. He had a couple of followers on his Instagram, and once this started beaming out, he's got something like 40,000. Anyways, he will be blessing us in the circle next month, so please put it in your calendars of him being here. And also, what will be happening to his one of the reasons why he is on is simply because he has a band and they will be kicking off our Indigenous Ways Festival series in May, which I'll talk about very soon. But if you want to take this recording of Mary Jane and share that out with all your networks, you can. If you go up to our website, IndigenousWays.org, there you'll see in our virtual library over 200 Indigenous, Native American, LGBTQIA, and deaf and hard of hearing presenters who have come through this format online. And Mary Jane Bird is clip will be in there too in the next about 24 hours, so you can share that out. Also, down below, you'll see all our social media sites. So if you're beaming in now or you have one of these sites, please subscribe to our pages. And also, if you want to be on our mailing list, just go into our website and there you'll see a button. Very exciting. Next Monday, we're revamping our website. So be sure to check that out and let us know what you think about that. And then all of this is possible because of our sponsors, the National Endowment of the Arts, the City of Santa Fe Arts and Culture Department, as well as the Santa Fe Community Foundation, Native American Advised Fund. And as you can see, we've got Mariah, who is here doing ASL interpreting, as well as Chris Essiano Garcia, who is here making access available. We have had those services available when we started the 1st of April 2020. I want to acknowledge our amazing board members who are here, Michelle Redman, our beautiful president, as well as Homer Hubble and others who are online. Thank you for your support. Also, all of you being here now, making this possible. And as I was saying before, our festival series, so save these dates. Our first one will be the first Friday of May, and thereafter in June and also in August. When we started doing our online events, we gained a worldwide audience, gathering family. So these events are in person and also hybrid live broadcasts. So if you're not here in Santa Fe, New Mexico, or you want to book and come to one of these amazing events, if you're not here, you can also beam in so you're not missing out on that. You can go to our website as well to find out more information. Big thanks to the beautiful Destiny Rushing, also the RTM team, and also the Open Tomorrow, who have made all of these things on the back end amazing. And then, you know, if you're able to donate, we've got our wonderful PayPal, Venmo, and also a link on our website. Or we have our snail mail, which is also very possible as well. So making all of the programs that we do free ASL interpreters, so everyone has access to that. So on that beautiful note, what I'm going to do is encourage everyone to turn on their video screens if you're able to. And then what's going to happen is Tasha's going to go around and take it from here. Thanks, Tash.
Thank you very much. And awesome show, Mary Jane Bird. Thank you very much. I'm going to pass it to Reverend Ananda Ray. Would you like to say some words?
Hey, Ananda. I can't hear you.
So good to see you and hear your story again. And I just wanted to share with everyone what the imprint that you made on your students, because I started studying with Mary Jane when I was 15, as in her high school class, modern dance, which was an amazing experience, absolutely changed my life. She was not just a great sister, but a great mentor as well, really teaching us like how to be a good person. She would have these potlucks at her house. She would have all the students over, and I babysat for Starlight. And Jane was the best woman in my marriage when I got married. It was like we really created a sense of family, those who studied with her, and she formed what would become my life. I became a dancer. I My whole life has been dedicated to dance, all because of you, Mary Jane. So I can't tell
And let
you.
them know that you're Native as well.
Yeah.
And didn't know that at the time.
Right, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
because my theory was I train dancers. If you become a dancer, great. If you don't, that's just fine. But I train dancers.
Yes, what a beautiful thing. And you changed lives.
Yes, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. I'm
You.
going to let somebody raise their hand if they want to say hi to Mary Jane. Raise your hand and I'll call on you.
Hey, Margie.
Okay, let's go with Margie. Need to unmute.
You, Margie.
Okay,
Margie.
can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
I was a student of Mary Jane's in college when she first got her, she was going for a master's degree and you were teaching some of our classes. And I was fortunate to be in one of her classes. Being from a Mexican-American background, it was very much of an inspiration for me to have a brown teacher as well. And so I could identify that, and I knew that I could do something too with the love that I had when I was just being introduced to dance. I was an athlete in grade school, and just going into dance was natural for me. My path was to be a high school teacher. I did that for 30 years. And Mary Jane's teaching style and passion and personality was very much of an influence on me. I often enjoyed the fact that she would take some moments to, as she was teaching a lesson, she had a personal experience to augment that lesson. And that was very much something that I took with me. So thank you, Mary Jane. And we've continued to be friends and stay in touch all these years. And I appreciate that.
Yes, and you just hiked half a soup pie. Yes.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, we are athletes. We are those dancers who prove that dancers can be athletes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Margie. That's awesome. Okay, anybody else want to say something? We got enough time for one or two quick ones.
I do.
Okay. Go for it, Rennie Blue. I think we're muted. I think we're muted, Rennie Blue Spruce. Rennie Blue.
Oh, Rini?
Yeah, I
Hey,
can hear you
Rennie.
now.
Hi, sweetheart. Hi, Aunt Mary Jane. I'm so glad I got to see this amazing hour of you. It makes me feel so happy that you're my aunt.
Thank you, Rini. I'm so glad you were able to join. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Rini.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think Arletta wants to say something. Arletta, do you want to say something? Go ahead. Arletta uses sign language, so Mariah will voice.
There's not many Native American dancers that can go on point. So I'm really amazed. Because again, there's just not many. It's so impressive. But thank you, Mary Jane.
Thank you.
Story.
Yeah. It's because it takes a long time to get
And I'm
on
sure you have
point.
to rest a lot, right? You've got to
No,
rest often after all of that
there's no such
practice,
thing as
right?
rest in dance. No.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
And it takes a long time to get on point. So that's why probably a lot of natives don't get that far. So yeah, it takes years to get that strength. Yep.
I see. That makes sense. Okay.
Beautiful. Thank you for that, Aletta.
This is Tasha's voice. I want to say thank you very much, everyone, for joining us this evening. We love you. Thank you for supporting Indigenous Ways. We are all inclusive. Everyone has an Indigenous background. I don't care if we're from Ireland or France or German or Russia. Before colonization, we all were collective groups. So thank you all for being here. And please join our website, IndigenousWays.org. Click at the bottom home page, put your name and your email. We email once a month, very short information. We don't send you a million emails a month. You get one email a month just to stay in tune and please become a part of our world family. We love you all. We would not be doing this without you. And most of all, let's give it up for Mary Jane Bird and our beautiful ASL interpreters, Mariah and Crescenciano. Woo!
And can I say thank you
Yes.
to all of you. I know who joined, and I want to say thank you for joining and giving me this support. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Take care, everybody. This is
Thanks,
a sign for
everyone.
I love
Thanks,
you, and
Mary Jane
Arletta's
Bird.
beautiful.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Hey ya, hey ya, hey, hey ya, windy oh ya, windy oh ya, windy oh hey, hey ya.